with clear spells in between. And under those clear skies, temperatures dipping away. We're looking at the mid to low single figures in some sheltered spots. But we start off Wednesday with sunny spells, although a chill in the air. There will be plenty of bright weather out there. And actually, for many, we'll avoid the showers, especially through this central swathe. But western and eastern parts will still see further showers and a brisk breeze, and that will make it feel on the cool side, 14 to 16 Celsius typically. Spells of rain pushing in from the North Sea then into northeast England, and that toppling into the rest of northern England, the Midlands, and as it pushes south through the early hours of Thursday, it will turn to showers before it reaches South Wales and southern England. Further showers come in across northern parts of the UK overnight as well. In between the showers, there will also be some clear spells, but it won't be quite as cool, I think, overnight because of the additional cloud cover, and so temperatures more like the high single figures than the low single figures. We start off Thursday with plenty of bright weather. There'll still be some showers, especially in the north and the east, those showers on the heavy side around northern England as well as eastern Scotland. Friday sees more prolonged rain arrive as well as a strengthening wind. Bright spells and showers on Saturday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, the intolerant and nasty left strike again. Labour MP Rupert Hug has been rightfully condemned and suspended from the party after making this disgustingly racist comment about Britain's first black Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng.
Yes, black man. If you hear him on the Today programme, you wouldn't know he's black.
Just shocking. But incredibly, some of her ilk think she was in the right, citing the Chancellor's supposed lack of support for ethnic groups. So is the left wrong to assume minorities in power have some sort of responsibility to support other minorities? Well, my superstar panel, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid tackle that in my big debate at 10. Terrible timing this, Ralph, for Keir Starmer, as it derailed his big party conference speech in which he tried to establish Labour as the choice for centrists. But I have the receipts.
Conference, the policy of my Labour government will always be to make Brexit work.
Our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.
So I'm going to call Starmer's bluff and pick apart his groan-worthy speech in my digest next. He was one of BBC Sport's regular fixtures for over 30 years, but that stood for nothing in the face of the drumbeat for diversity. Football icon and top pundit Mark Lawrenson gives his first TV interview since accusing the corporation of axing him for being white, male and 65. That's a crime at the BBC. He's live with me at 10:15. After royal aides reportedly brand Meghan Markle a narcissistic sociopath in a bombshell new book, Australian Senator Holly Hughes, who went viral for saying this about the Duchess, is vindicated and she's all fired up.
Well, I think she's had a terrible influence over him, and she's just a horrible human.
Holly Hughes will be here to discuss the international reaction to those comments and the latest palace revelations and Uncancelled at 10:40. Plus, as insiders say, King Charles saw tremendous flickers of hope of a reconciliation with Harry and Meghan. Should our new monarch be focusing on the country instead of the Sussexes? Will royal biographer Angela Levin, writer and broadcaster Anna May Mangan and broadcaster Angelica Mellon have a royal rumble in the clash at 9:20 as ever, though it's your verdict that's the most important to me. I'll tell you how to get in touch soon. After a devastating new poll predicts doom for the Tories, especially in the Red Wall, is the party already beginning to regret knifing Boris Johnson in the back? I urge the Conservatives to stop playing into the hand of the left in the MSM and back Liz Truss in the media buzz at 10:30. And after this young woman is left traumatised by an encounter with two men in a unisex Primark changing room, do woke corporations pose a danger to society?
Twice, two men opened the curtain, walked in on me.
Man of the People and former Corrie actor Charlie Lawson says he's afraid to let his wife and daughters go anywhere near one of those facilities. He's going to speak out on this at 9:40. Plus, has the furore over this hyper-sexualised Canadian school teacher exposed the absurdity of trans-orthodoxy? The one and only Megyn Kelly weighs in at 9:50. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages and a new Greatest Britain Union Jackass crown before the end of the show too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. The tone-deaf, left-wing, ultra-woke broadcaster ITV just doesn't get it when it comes to the justified outrage over Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby skipping the queue to see the Queen lie in state and then pretending they didn't. So today, their lefty chief executive, Carolyn McCall, who has overseen a purge, by the way, of right-wing talent at the broadcaster over the past 2 years, stood by her embattled hosts. She told the RTS conference they did have accreditation. Lots of people saying they didn't. They were sent by This Morning to do a piece for September the 20th, which ran. They were to interview people inside and outside. They didn't displace anyone in the queue, and they've been very misrepresented, actually, and that's why we made a statement. Unusually, we made a statement to say all of those things, but it does show you how things spread and how misinformation just spreads, and it's really horrible for them. I'm sorry, Ms. McCall. The only one spreading misinformation here is you. They didn't interview any people inside or outside. They weren't allowed to inside. And then they hastily filmed themselves on a shaky mobile phone when they realised the growing outrage over their decision to push in front of the great British public who had lined up for 13 hours. But to show you the way ITV wields its powers, the CEO then revealed the company had complained to Domino's, the pizza company, over their tweet that read, "Apologies to anyone waiting on their pizza. We've just received an order from Holly and Phil." I thought that was funny, right? But McCall said, "We just said to them, what are you doing? Because we work with Domino's, and they said, we think it's really funny, don't you?" They just thought that was funny. They didn't think of the impact that would have on how people would pick up and start memeing it. Look, let me just tell you one thing. ITV proved today it now represents censorship over freedom of speech. My digest on why Keir Starmer is wrong to say Labour is the party of the centre coming up in just a moment. Then my A-list superstar panel weigh in. Tonight, the top Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator and GB News star, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid. But before all of that, the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. As you've been hearing, the Labour leader has promised he'll create a publicly owned green energy company within a year if he's elected. Sir Keir Starmer said his plans for Great British Energy, as it will be known, would provide British power to the British people. His keynote speech at the Labour Party conference today came after days of financial market uncertainty in the wake of the Chancellor's mini-budget. Speaking in Liverpool earlier, Sir Keir also took aim at the government and said, don't forget, don't forgive.
The government has lost control of the British economy. And for what? They've crashed the pound. And for what? My government will be different. We will run towards the challenges of tomorrow. We will get us out of this endless cycle of crisis. And we will do it with a fresh start, a new set of priorities, and a new way of governing.
Well, meanwhile, the Chancellor has been telling city investors he's confident in the government's long-term plan for growth after the pound hit a record low against the dollar. Kwasi Kwarteng reiterated the government's commitment to financial and fiscal sustainability in a meeting with pension fund owners, insurers and asset managers. Next month, he'll set out a package of regulatory reforms for the UK's financial services sector and, he says, drive growth and incentivise investment. And as Dan was telling you, the Labour MP Rupert Hook has offered the Chancellor her sincere and heartfelt apologies for comments she made describing him as superficially black. Ms Hook has been suspended from the Labour Party following the recorded comments she made about Kwasi Kwarteng at a Labour conference fringe event yesterday. Labour has condemned the comments, calling them totally inappropriate. Well, in news away from politics, Royal Mail workers are staging a further 19 strikes across October and throughout November. It's the latest in a dispute between the Communication Workers Union and Royal Mail over pay and conditions. The union had already set out plans for strikes from later on this month to early October. The union says the fresh strikes will have a dramatic impact and will cover peak periods such as Black Friday, Cyber Monday and the build-up to Christmas. International news, and Ukraine is accusing Russia of causing leaks in 2 major gas pipelines to Europe in what's being described as a terrorist attack. That comes after 3 offshore lines running under the Baltic Sea developed unexplained leaks yesterday. Denmark's Prime Minister says the leaks were detected and were caused by deliberate actions and could not have been the result of accidents. The Kremlin is saying it can't rule out sabotage as the cause of damage to its Nord Stream gas pipeline. An investigation has now been launched into the cause. Here at home, the first letters to be stamped with the King's cipher have rolled off the franking machine at Buckingham Palace. Messages of appreciation, cards, letters and condolence received by the royal family from the public following the Queen's death will all begin to be sent out later on this week. His Majesty's monogram appearing on government buildings as well, state documents and some post boxes. And new banknotes featuring the King's likeness are expected to enter circulation by mid-2024. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Today, the British bashing corporation, otherwise known as the BBC, would like us all to believe that the Labour Party and Keir Starmer have had a Damascene conversion. Gone are the far-left policy positions propagated by take-the-knee Starmer for the past 3 years, including those meant to appease the hard left of his party before being elected as leader. Gone are the extreme positions he backed when the morality-free politician was lobbying for the king of anti-Semitism, Jeremy Corbyn, to become the UK's Prime Minister. Oh, and he'd like us to forget that he led the charge to overturn the biggest democratic vote in British history by holding a second referendum to try and reverse Brexit, something I promised then I would never forget. And I haven't. Luckily, I've got the receipts that show Starmer as anything but some sort of Tony Blair-style centrist politician.
We are the party of the centre ground. I'm 100% behind Jeremy Corbyn.
You are now.
I am working with Jeremy Corbyn to try to win the next general election. Conference, the policy of my Labour government will always be to make Brexit work.
Our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.
To make our party fit to serve our country. That's why we had to rip out anti-Semitism by its roots.
You're loyal to Jeremy Corbyn, and you've spoken in his defence just now. But Louise Ellman says that he is a danger not just to the Labour Party, but to the entire British Jewish community.
I don't accept that. I don't accept that. Once again, the political wing of the British people.
Someone can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not. I don't think we can conduct this debate with.
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just... I just...
Anything but centrist. And even today, Starmer's rhetoric failed to match his claim to be a party of the, quote, centre ground. Mark my word, his pledge for net zero carbon by 2030 to be implemented in his first 100 days in office will bankrupt this country and force us into varying forms of climate lockdown. Notably, the biggest share of the speech came with a pledge to, in 2022, he's saying this, launch a nationalised energy company.
And because it is right for jobs, because it is right for growth, because it is right for energy independence from tyrants like Putin, then yes, conference, great British energy will be publicly owned.
As the Daily Telegraph's Christopher Hope rightly pointed out, a great British energy company is something which Jeremy Corbyn would be proud. Where is Sir Keir Starmer's offer to Middle Britain? Well, Starmer hopes we're all stupid enough to forget that Labour remains a party of the hard left, a party of the big state, a party of high taxes, a party that hates business and the rich, a party obsessed with craven identity politics, a party that doesn't tell the truth about its real aims, a party that believes black people must speak a certain way, even if they're chancellor, a party that in power will install proportional representation and give the vote to 16-year-olds in a bid to keep the Conservatives out of office forevermore. Starmer has the political establishment and the MSM fooled because they are desperate to run the Tories out of power. And they're fooled by his straight appearance and wooden dad jokes like this.
After all the changes we've made, all the hard work that we've put in, finally we're seeing the results. Yes, conference, we can say it at last. Arsenal are top of the league. And we can achieve great things. Yesterday, we even managed to get a Liverpool crowd cheering Gary Neville.
Andy Burnham isn't fooled, and I'm not fooled either. Labour is anything but the centre ground, and a government led by Starmer would run the UK into the ground. To respond now, my superstar panel. Top Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and broadcaster, Rebecca Reed. I mean, Amanda Platel, the BBC News tonight was like a paid political advert for Keir Starmer. No questioning of all of these U-turns and all of the gaps and all of the fact that actually, despite him saying it's the centre ground, he wants to launch a nationalised energy company.
I just thought that was the biggest nonsense of the whole thing. I mean, who funds this? How's it set up? Look, I've done these kind of speeches in my past, working for William Hague. What happens, you start working on them 3 hours, 3 months before the speech, and then a week before you think, oh, my God, we haven't got a big idea. And then some young kid says, what about we make up this thing about, our very own GB energy company? And he goes, I love it. Because everyone's so tired. It is the most pathetic idea I've ever heard. Uncosted, unthought out, totally ridiculous. I did watch the whole speech. I mean, the things I do for you, Dan, Jesus.
God, it was long. I know it was shorter than last year, but 15 minutes, come on.
I know, it was, and the thing, I thought the two things that really struck me is, first of all, he's going on and on about working people, right? And I kind of got the feeling that people that in the middle classes weren't included in that. And there was one moment in that particular speech where he stopped talking about working people and he called them the working classes. This is purely pitched at the working classes. He has no instinct, no care, no concern for the middle classes, which is what his hero, Tony Blair, you know that bit, this is our 1997 moment. In his dreams, you know, Tony Blair understood instinctively that he had to bring big business on board, that he had to make the middle classes of Britain. You can't win just with the working classes, fantastic though they are. You know, the working class people out here in your, you know, who kind of make this show happen and put the fan on for us, you know, which is making my eyes bleed. It looks like I'm weeping over Keir Starmer's speech. But one of the other things I thought was quite staggering, there's two other bits I loved, OK? I loved it when he said he met this woman. They're always meeting these women, right? And she said, oh, it's not enough, so I'm struggling so much. It's not enough that I survive. I have to thrive. Who said that?
Who?
Meghan Markle.
Oh,
so Meghan Markle was clearly walking around Blackpool when he got that. And the other thing is, I want to know who his colourist is, because he's clearly streaking...
What's a colourist?
Someone who's... Well, I don't know myself, because mine's just naturally this colour.
Hair colour.
Some people go grey. Obviously, this will never happen to you. And some people have to have their hair
You do some pull-ups on
I'm
his
happy
hair.
to go grey.
He's had a colourist put streaks in his hair.
Oh, really?
You heard it here first.
You think that's a dye job?
Yeah.
To clarify, that's alleged. I don't think that Amanda has like a tip from a colourist.
I have not. It's just my experience of other men who have this done.
Okay.
But look, it was just all fantasy. Just kind of reminded me of one of my ex-boyfriends, you know, telling you they're rich, telling you they're going to make your life wonderful, and then you find out he's got a big hole in his pocket.
Well, Calvin Robinson, maybe he's covering up his real hair colour, just like he's covering up those hard left policies.
Look, even if we take him in good faith and believe that this is the new Labour, all they've talked about is being pro-immigration, pro-Ukraine, spending lots more money on Ukraine, pro-green agenda. What are they offering that's different to the Conservative Party? Absolutely nothing, as far as I can see. So they're not reclaiming any ground. The only wiggle room they have is putting taxes up where the Tories have took them down. There's nothing there for them to offer whatsoever.
I think what they have to offer is that they're not the Tory party.
But even this
honestly,
public...
Did you like the speech, Rebecca, today?
I did. I mean, I was 5 in 1997, so I don't have a great memory of what that was like. But I sense that we're very ready for that moment of optimism. And it's been a long time. Like, I didn't like Jeremy Corbyn. I struggled with Jeremy
feel
Corbyn.
optimistic about Starmer?
A little bit. Not, you know, I'm not, like, overexcited. But
it's okay to say it.
I do. I feel a little bit like what might happen is he might get in and being centre-left will be cool again, which is my dream. And things will be, like, 25 to 30% better than they are now. And I'll take that.
But, Rebecca, that's my point, though. I don't believe he's centre anything.
I think
he is still a hard left guy who covers it up.
I don't think he was ever hard left. I think he's had a lot of stick from his own party because he's not left enough. I think if you compare him to Jeremy Corbyn, he is dramatically less hard left.
Who he wanted to be Prime Minister.
Well, it was his job. No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If some anti-Semite was running the political party that I was a member of, I'd quit.
Well, I didn't vote for Labour when Jeremy Corbyn was in power because of my feelings about anti-Semitism.
Absolutely. And you did the right thing morally. He did the wrong thing morally. Does that moral compass not matter?
I suppose if you really believe that it's the party that's going to make a greatest number of people's lives better, you stick and you try and change it from the inside. A lot of my friends who've worked in Labour did that.
I think
personally, I tapped out while he was in charge. But I think it depends.
I think it's a cop-out of it.
And he also got the biggest standing ovation for when he said that we've rid the party of anti-Semitism, as if that's something to be proud of.
They have done dramatically better, to be fair.
But he got a big standing ovation for that. To think that you're even part, I would not even belong to.
Oh, and by
100%.
And by the way,
Labour has a
they
massive
might have
issue
got
with
rid of the anti-Semites, but we're going to be talking
Well,
about
they
it
got rid
later.
of some of them. They
They're
haven't
going to
got
be
rid of
talking
all of
about it
them.
later. But they certainly didn't get rid of a certain racist in time, a woman called Rupa Huck.
We're
But
not
gonna
allowed to
come
talk about that yet,
later.
Dan. We
No,
have
we're
to
going to
wait.
come to that later in the show.
We were told we couldn't talk about
because
it.
I'm absolutely furious about it. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Roberts, and Amanda Mattan, my Superstar panel. They will be back later talking about Rupa Huck and that extraordinary racist comment which has completely overshadowed any of the work Starmer thought he did today. But also coming up, after a young woman was left traumatised by an encounter with two men in a unisex Primark changing room, do woke corporations pose a danger to society? Well, our man of the people, former Corrie actor Charlie Lawson, weighs in at 9:40. But up next in The Clash, as insiders say, King Charles saw, quote, tremendous flickers of hope of a reconciliation with Prince Harry and Meghan. Should our new monarch be focusing on the country instead of the Sussexes? Well, royal biographer Angela Levin, the writer and broadcaster Anna May Mangan, and the broadcaster Angelica Mallon have a royal rumble in just a few moments. Want to know what you think, though? Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle @gbnews. Our poll running there too. The results proclaimed after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio, and online. We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's time now for The Clash. Now, as King Charles officially begins his duties after mourning the death of the Queen, many issues should be at the forefront of his agenda. So is it time he stops focusing on the melodrama being caused by his wayward son, Prince Harry, and diva wife Meghan, and worrying about the country instead? Well, a bombshell exclusive in the Daily Telegraph today has revealed he intends on continuing a futile bid to please the Montecito exiles. A source told the newspaper it remains the case that the King loves both of his children. Over the past 16 days or so, there were tremendous flickers of hope in terms of the future. There is hope of a cause for unity. I'm sorry, but in my view, that's delusional, especially as Harry continues to plan to release his tell-all autobiography, pouring a bucket of mud over both Charles and his wife, the new Queen. So with Britain facing multiple crises and soaring inflation, is the King's fixation on mending his relationships with the Sussexes a distraction? And should he be focusing on his official duties as the new King instead? Let me know your thoughts by emailing me at dan@gbnews.uk or tweet me at GBNews. You can vote in our poll while you're there too. The results shortly, but to help you make up your mind on this, I'm joined by the royal commentator and biographer, former biographer actually, of Prince Harry himself, Angela Levin, the author Anna May Mangan, and the editor for About Time magazine, Angelica Mallon. So, Angela Levin, look, I know Prince Charles thinks he's doing the right thing here, okay? Because he thinks, I love my son, and surely my son is going to show me that love. But isn't he just being very naive, Angela, given that Harry still intends to press ahead with this autobiography, which is, by all accounts, going to slag off his wife, Camilla?
Well, I think that no one has the right to tell a father how he feels about his son or daughter, for that matter. It's really up to them. But I think there is a big difference for someone who is like a king or anybody in those sort of areas, that you have to split your personal life from your professional life. And he wants to be a good father and he wants to be a good king. And I don't think that those two go very well at the moment, because Harry is very obstinate. Neither he nor Meghan would compromise. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult. And we might have them both back, which I think will be an absolute disaster. It will be extremely unpopular. And they would have to make an agreement that they would stop sniping at everything, stop thinking just about themselves, and actually be prepared to be number 5 in the hierarchy. And I can't see them doing that. I can't see Meghan understanding what it is to devote your life to the sacrifice that you make when you join the royal family. I think she's never got it. Anybody who'd got it wouldn't, when they were in Australia and shaking hands with everybody, saying, you know, I can't believe they're not paying me for this. I mean, it was an absolutely amazing thing that she's alleged to have said. And you can't really work within the monarchy is if that's what you feel, that it's about you earning money rather than you dedicating your life to looking after the country and the Commonwealth.
No, I think that's a very good point, actually. Of course, that was one of those shocking revelations from the new book by Valentine Lowe, Courtiers, wasn't it? Anna May Mangan, I'm sorry, I think Charles needs to grow a pair. I'm going to be completely honest here. And he needs to say, you're going to lose your titles. I mean, rather than constantly trying to appease these two, I actually think he needs to cut them loose, Anna May.
Yeah, so he's 73 and he's taken on what Diana called the top job, and he needs support now and he needs people around him. They've resigned. Harry and Meghan have resigned. Not only have they resigned, but they're a pair of whingers, and they're going to sabotage his attempts, which are going to be hard enough, to follow the Queen in her duty, her hard work. They have to go. I mean, if they're not working royals. They've said they don't want to be working royals. They need to be moved to one side. There's nothing to stop Charles being a great dad, but I don't think the public will tolerate the royalty funding this pair now after all the vitriol they've spewed. And I think Charles is an incredibly patient and indulgent man towards them, because had it been one of my kids, and I adore my children, I would have cut all ties 5 minutes after the Oprah Winfrey interview. They're not young. People keep calling them this young couple. They're approaching their 40s now. And in that interview with Oprah, they were talking about how they've been cut off financially. The daddy has turned off the money taps. I mean, it's just cringeworthy. And now we want to wheel them back into positions of state. Of course not. He's got to concentrate on the brand, Charles, and do the job to the best of his ability, and move away and disassociate himself from anyone who's trying to bring him or this country down.
Yeah, for the good of this country. Angelica Mallett, how can you keep defending these two after all of their shocking behaviour?
I mean, firstly, I don't think this is about just, reconciliation to the point of them being working royals again. I don't think they want to be working royals. I think it's important to remember, though, that the monarchy on a global scale, if we're looking at how they're perceived internationally, it's important that they look unified and working. There was so much damage done by this fallout on an international scale, and I think Charles coming into his reign and starting it off on a high note, trying to reconcile, is a good thing.
But why should he? When they keep slagging him off.
He's a father. Why should he not want to?
Well, I would argue that actually he needs to focus on the country. Sorry, Anna May, you come in.
I was saying have them over for Christmas lunch, spend a couple of weekends with them. Just don't have them. They don't want to be working royals, and I think he should take their titles and then love them as his son and his daughter-in-law and their grandchildren. And they've queered their pitch already. They've said what they want.
Yeah, but they're not interested.
But they want a bit of everything, don't they? They want the cream of being a royal, where they can go to all the great events and smile and be on the front page of the newspaper. Yet they also want to use their royal titles, which they cling on to as if they're falling off a rock. They want to earn money out of that, and they promised the Queen that they wouldn't do that. The late Queen, she said that, go with my blessing, but you cannot use your royal titles for commercial gain. And they've done that.
And Angela
very
Levin,
badly.
just last week, Katie Nicholl, who's released her new book, The New Royals, and she was here on the show, revealed that actually when Charles and Camilla made an attempt at reconciliation recently, it was before the last visit, before the most recent visit when the Queen sadly died, or the late Queen died, they turned up late to their meeting with Charles and Camilla, so they only had 15 minutes with them, and during that time they suggested a mediator would have to be called in order to put their relationship straight. I mean, to me, that doesn't seem like two people, Angela, who have any genuine desire to sort this problem out.
I don't think they have a genuine desire for it. I just think they're behaving like spoilt teenagers, really. Petulant teenagers, and actually they're, as one of the people here said, they're in 40. Well, Harry's 38 and Meghan's 41. I mean,
they ain't young.
Stumping about.
They ain't young.
And making a lot of nasty comments. And the fact that they could have said the awful things they did with their appalling timing when Prince Philip was very, very ill, and then the Queen was very ill, to add all that pain on her, they don't understand anymore. Harry did. He used to be terrific when I was interviewing him for his biography. But all the worst of him has come out, and I think it's a great shame.
Angelica Bellon, how do you reconcile the fact that when Prince Philip was on his deathbed, they were slagging off the royal family and the institution on Oprah Winfrey, and when the Queen was on her deathbed, Meghan was doing it in the pages of this uber-woke magazine, The Cut?
So I think, firstly, your language, things like slagging off, I'm not sure that's the kind of words I would use here. What I would say was they were talking about some of the challenges faced. So things like the racism from the British public, which was a very real thing.
Sorry, how was it real?
Challenges of the job.
So what examples do you have, Angelica?
Talking about one's mental health. Harry has done great things for talking openly about his mental health. And I think this is a generational shift in that young people like Harry and Meghan for talking about those things so publicly. So where you might find that offensive, lots of young people see him.
Well, no, what I find offensive, Angelica, are lies. And Angelica, there's just one thing I want to pick you up on. You say as an irrefutable fact that Harry and Meghan suffered a lot of racism from the British public. Where's your evidence of that? Because what I saw when they got married was the entire country shut down, came together to celebrate a beautiful union. So where is all of this racism, Angelica? Seriously?
There's a lot of evidence of death threats sent her way. Look at any of the videos and interviews with Prince Harry.
You spoke about racism.
And what they suffered. Sorry?
You spoke about racism.
Racism towards Meghan Markle, yeah.
Well,
a lot of people don't like her. I think people don't like her.
That Oprah Winfrey.
She was sent thousands of death threats. If you saw how the British media treated Meghan Markle, anything that Meghan Markle did was picked up on, pulled apart in the way that things that when Kate Middleton
Angelica, that is rubbish. I worked in the British media during that whole period. We celebrated the union. They were all on the front page celebrating. The whole country stopped. I mean, this is just a trope, and it is an untrue trope, Anna May Mangan, that Harry and Meghan suffered racism. Of course, there are a small number of racist people in this country, just like there are racists everywhere, and those people should be condemned. But this idea, Anna May Mangan, that they were subjected to some sort of racist campaign by either the British public or the British press, I'm sorry, I'm going to call it out for what it is. It is a lie. It didn't happen.
All I can tell you is that had I been blindfolded and never seen either of them ever at any time and listened to the Oprah Winfrey interview, I would have really been very concerned about the two of them then. Even if what colour or race or culture, nothing came into it. I thought the way that he sold his family down the river and she joined in was beyond shocking. It proved they were untrustworthy. I thought they were monetarising their grievances, and that's a very dangerous place to be, because where do they stop? How much more are they going to tell while their dad is saying, I love them, I want to reconcile with them? I think he should if he can reconcile with them, but behind closed doors, and those two need to be kept out of the public eye as royals. Let them sell their talents, whatever they are. They're not very evident at the moment, but let them sell their talents to Hollywood. That's fine. Make a good living. I wish them well, but stop trashing the royal family.
Yeah. No, good point. Angela, just a final word to you, because I just wanted you to pick up, Angela, on these claims that Harry and Meghan were apparently subjected to racism from the British public or the British press. Did you see any of that, Angela?
No, I haven't. I mean, it's not racist. People haven't liked her. They haven't liked her, how rude she is. They haven't liked the lies she told. There are at least 17 lies in the interview with Oprah. And I think that it's done this as sort of a victim side of both of them nowadays, where they cry out that everything's so awful and people are treating them so badly and we're all nasty and hate people who aren't of mixed race. None of that is true, actually. I was there talking about the wedding, and I mean, there were thousands of people there who were absolutely thrilled, as you said, but she's actually been very, very unpleasant to everyone here within the monarchy, and I think that she's misplacing being against her colour or lack of, compared to how rude she is, what she says with her mouth or her speak.
Indeed. That was royal commentator and biographer Angela Levin, the author Anime Mangad, and the editor for About Time magazine, Angelica Mellon. Thank you also. Who do you agree with? Should King Charles focus on the country instead of the Sussexes? That's our question tonight. Sean on Twitter says, now Charles has taken the reins, he should carry on where his late mother left off, not worrying about Harry and his woke wife. From Bri, Harry and Meghan are an utter embarrassment for this country. Get rid and forget them. And from Chase C on email, King Charles needs to concentrate on the country. Olive branches have been extended to Harry and he has shown he is not prepared to give an inch. If Charles starts pandering to Harry, he will lose my respect and support. And your verdict is now in. 85% of you agree that Charles should focus on the country rather than the Sussexes, while 15% of you say he can focus on both. Now, coming up, as the hypersexualised Canadian schoolteacher who has sent social media into frenzy faces being made to tone down, has this scandal finally exposed the absurdity of the trans orthodoxy? Our very own Megyn Kelly weighs in at 9:50. But first, after a young woman was left traumatised by an encounter with two men in a unisex Primark changing room, do woke corporations pose a danger to society? Man of the People and former Corrie actor Charlie Lawson gives his unfiltered opinion straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland, Wales,
And Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online. We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Megyn Kelly and a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming up. But first, Coronation Street legend and voice of the people Charlie Lawson is tonight's outsider. Now, high street giant Primark has been forced to review its gender-neutral changing rooms policy after this video went viral over the weekend.
Yeah, I was trying on some clothes and it was a unisex changing room, which I'm really for, and I love that because, you know, it makes everyone feel included. But twice, two men opened the curtain, walked in on me. Luckily, both times I was wearing fully clothed, but I could easily not have been.
Oh, that poor woman. Well, following furious backlash to the video, Primark responded, "We've received questions about an incident in our fitting rooms this weekend. We're sorry for the customer's experience. Want to ensure this doesn't happen again. This is something we've been looking into to ensure everyone always feels safe and comfortable. We'll share more soon." But Charlie, do these corporations who are imposing woke policies actually now pose a danger to society, given the experience of that poor woman who now doesn't even feel confident, Charlie, to go into a changing room?
Yeah, I think they're making a grave error here, and I think it's a recipe for disaster. Not just Primark, but I believe theatres and all over the places are having these unisex toilets, and I think it's an accident waiting to happen. As you know, Dan, as usual, I made a few phone calls today before talking to you, mate. And out of the 5 women I spoke to, 3 were actresses and 2 were civilians, if you like. And all 5 of them said it was a crazy idea. I mean, look, I was brought up to respect women, and I can't help feeling that it seems to be over the last sort of year or whatever, I feel that women are being sidelined by all sorts of movements. And I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable going into, I don't mind going into the bathroom with Debbie at home, but I certainly wouldn't go into a unisex toilet when I was out shopping, be it in Primark, Marks and Spencer's, John Lewis, or anything else. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with it. And I think it's an accident waiting to happen. I really do. We've got enough bloody predators out there without giving them more opportunity for this. And Debbie can look after herself, but I know damn well she wouldn't be comfortable about going through the same situation as well. I know that young lady said she was all for it, for inclusivity, etc., etc. But, if she can be fully clothed and feel that uncomfortable, then just imagine, the shit that would hit the fan if some poor, unfortunate female was down to her underwear and some guys just came crashing in there. So I think it's a no-no.
And it's not fair on anyone, Charlie, because as you say, indeed, it's not fair on anyone, because as you say, most men, apart from the dodgy predators, don't want to be put in this situation either. But Charlie, that wasn't actually the only case of PC madness this week. The Ministry of Defence has now admitted that, quote, some mistakes were made in the Royal Air Force. Now, you'll remember this was about reports that there was a recruitment drive which favoured women and ethnic minority candidates. Initially, they tried to deny this, but now they acknowledge that despite the best of intentions, some mistakes were made in its approach. So now, Charlie, we're also compromising the strength of our armed forces to promote some sort of diversity agenda?
I have to think this, Dan, and my father served the RAF in Burma for a considerable period of time, and he flew with all races, not necessarily genders, of course not, because that just didn't happen in those days. Nowadays, if you cut the mustard and you pass the test of the RAF, It doesn't matter male or female. If you pass the test, that's fine. As regards ethnic, different races in the forces, you've only got to look at the SAS to see how many Fijians and other Commonwealth members try to enter. And indeed, there have been several famous cases of Fijians being highly decorated with the special forces. Look, you know, if you pass the test, you're in. There is a significant number of women who are being allowed to try for the SBS, SA, etc., if they pass the test. I don't think, to my knowledge, any have got any further than those tests. But, you know, we need to be concentrating on our armed forces, and the best get in, and it's as simple as that. And the race argument, in my experience talking to veterans, sometimes happens in the British Army, but normally what happens is the culprit gets his head knocked in by the victim or friends of the victims. It gets itself sorted out. We need to stop this woke bloody nonsense. We have the finest forces in the world, and if you pass the test, you get in. You don't suddenly turn around and say, well, we need to have 3 more women in this platoon because there's only one. You know what I mean? Life doesn't work like that, and most sensible women know that. And you know, I just think it's some idiot that the RAF obviously employed, thinking they were doing the right thing. Somebody who'd worked in some bloody office in Westminster or something, the PC office, and they've come along and they've realised they've made dicks of themselves. Excuse me.
Yes. Well, what was actually fascinating about it, Charlie, in this case, it was a woman who blew the whistle on the whole thing by quitting as one of the heads of recruitment at the RAF, which just proves the point, doesn't it? Women working in the armed forces understand you need, in certain units, physically strong folk. And it shouldn't matter what sex or race they were. But the problem is, Charlie, as always seems the case these days, they were being guided away from hiring white men.
Yeah, and women are pretty well represented now across the forces. In the oldest service of them all, the Royal Navy. I couldn't give you figures on Royal Marines or frontline regiments like paratroopers because I just don't know. But the women that I do know involved with the services have a full and very rewarding life, and they contribute just as much as the men. However, as you quite rightly point out, women are completely aware that in certain situations they ain't going to cut the mustard, and it's as simple as that. It's nothing to do with being anti-feminine, anti-woman or anything else. It's just the facts of life. And if Sharon Davis can go along with it in sport, then you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
She gets my vote every time.
No, that is true. Me too. Charlie Lawson, our voice of the people, the former Coronation Street actor. Thank you so much, Charlie. We will speak next week. But coming up, her disgustingly racist comment against Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng has got Rupa Haq suspended from the Labour Party, but incredibly, she's still got her defenders. So my superstar panel are going to break down the latest example of this lefty, hypocritical nastiness in the media buzz at 10. But first, has the foray over hypersexualised Canadian teacher Kayla Lamo exposed the absurdity of the trans orthodoxy? Superstar US journalist Megyn Kelly joins me straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online. We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's Megyn Kelly time now, and the international controversy over a trans-Canadian school teacher's hypersexualised classroom outfit could be coming to an end. Kayla Lamo riled some students and infuriated parents, not surprisingly, at a school near Toronto by flaunting eye-popping, oversized prosthetic breasts during lessons. Now, several pupils started protests outside the school, with some holding signs that read, "Inclusivity is no excuse for depravity." Lamo, meanwhile, is being protected at the school by both a private security firm and local police officers. The school has long insisted its hands are tied because of human rights legislation, adding yet another new dimension to the trans debate, both in Canada and around the world. However, the situation could soon be coming to end with the school board vote to introduce a new dress code, which, if passed, would force the teacher to tone down and take the breasts out. But Megyn Kelly, would you say that this teacher has exposed once and for all the absurdity of the trans orthodoxy that we're seeing pushed, especially in woke countries like Canada?
Yes, 100%. And you were being gentle to call it eye-popping. Obviously, what we have there is weird nipple popping that doesn't exist on any actual woman on Earth.
No.
This is clearly a man who decided to fetishize his fake breasts in his weird image of what a woman looks like, which doesn't actually match up with any real woman. And I know some women with some very large breasts, but that nobody looks like this. This is somebody who is ill. This is somebody who's got a fetish and wants to get off having young children see him exercise his fetish, which is itself very deeply problematic. But the most problematic part of this whole thing is the fact that the school is defending him, that the school is saying that inclusivity requires that the students be subjected to those fake watermelon breasts with the nipples the size of plums in their faces and by the mechanical saw while they're just trying to learn. As one of the guys on my show said last week, can't I just make a birdhouse? Like, why must I participate in your weird X-rated sexual fetish when I'm forced to go here by law because my parents paid taxes? So the school should not be standing by this very sick person. All right, this is a sick individual. They should be firing this person. But Canada law says that you can't treat a trans person basically with hate, with anything that would amount to hate, and anything cracking down on their expression of their chosen gender can be characterized as hate. They have ruled, the courts have ruled in Canada, that misusing the pronouns of choice by somebody like this Kayla Lemieux could be a hate crime against them. So can you imagine what this school is going to face if it says, take out your enormous fake breasts with the totally inappropriate nipples because it violates our dress code, and they're doing it clearly to crack down on his expression of his perceived gender. They are going to get sued, and you know what? They could lose. But still, who are they going to fight for? Themselves or their children?
Well, Megyn, isn't there an argument that these children are being sexually harassed?
100%. They're being exploited. This is child abuse. It's worse than just sexual harassment. It's abuse. It'd be one thing, Dan. There are a lot of women out there who are well endowed or who choose to enlarge their breasts with implants. Okay, that's one thing. Breasts are part of a normal woman's body. However, it would go to the next level if a woman then wore an extra tight t-shirt or something very revealing in a classroom setting, and on top of it, stuck in abnormally weird, protruding weirdly large nipples. That's what this man has done. I'm sorry, there's no other word. There's no euphemism for nipple. I tried, Dan, there isn't. So that it's crossed over into a very weird place, even if this were a woman. But this is a man who
Well, I know if it was a woman, Meghan, right, I think there is no way that the woman would still be in her job. And that's the irony. And this is why the trans orthodoxy is insane.
Well, that's the other thing about this that really irritates me. So this is this guy's weird idea of what a woman looks like, and the little girls in shop class have to accept this, and the boys have to accept this as the new image of a woman. No, Kayla Lemieux is not a woman. Kayla Lemieux is a trans woman, and this case, better than any, illustrates the difference. There's a difference between the two. I'm not going to say no woman would walk around like that, but it would be an extremely small percentage of women who would ever choose to present this way in front of a classroom. So his idea of what a woman looks like and acts like is completely skewed and sick. And why is it skewed and sick? Because I would suggest this person is. This is not just somebody struggling with gender ideology. This is somebody with a sexual fetish working it out on kids in the single digits, and this person ought to be fired and not allowed near children again.
Well, indeed, because for standing up for someone like this, Meghan, actually, it's doing a huge disservice, isn't it, to the trans women who are trying to live an honest life.
Yeah, and quietly, honestly, we had a librarian at my son's old school who transitioned in the middle of the school year. This person did it quietly, without fanfare. They changed their pronouns. Basically, they went to Mix. They wanted to be called Mix as the first name instead of Mr. or Ms. And so it was almost like a nickname because, you know, Mix isn't really a pronoun.
So what,
listen,
sorry,
it wasn't
Mix
ideal.
Instead of Mr. or Mrs. Oh, God, I struggle with that, but
ideal.
okay.
But can I tell you, I supported this person because they were not trying to impose any weirdness on the kids. They were going through something in their own lives, and the dress didn't change dramatically. They just sort of looked, what's the word when you don't look feminine or male?
Androgynous.
Androgynous. They look more androgynous. Thank you. I thought that was an appropriate way to handle it if you've got to handle it in the middle of a school year. Again, not ideal. This is something else entirely. And yes, this person, who I don't even know if this is a trans person. I really don't. I think this is just a person with a weird sexual fetish glomming on to the trans movement, but in doing so, exposing its problems. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this. I may have told you about my friend who has a big company, and well, it's my friend's friend, and they hired somebody who now identifies as a tiger. No, everybody over there's got to pretend this person's
No,
a
you
tiger.
haven't told me about this, Meghan. You have to explain. You have to explain. Obsessed. What do you mean?
My friend's friend runs a company. This man hired a perfectly normal seeming person out of college who interviewed well and showed up for the first day dressed like a tiger and saying that she identifies as a tiger with the tail and the little ears. And now he can't get rid of her because, of course, she's going to sue him if he tries to call her a woman or say you can't look like that in front of the customers. I'm like, are they putting like a litter box in the women's room now? Like, what? That's where this is going. If we decide to play this fake dance, this is where it's going.
The plot. No, you're right. We are losing the plot, and that's why these schools and these Canadian school boards have to stand up to this madness, especially when there are children involved. Meghan Kelly, host of the brilliant Meghan Kelly Show, which you can find on SiriusXM, YouTube, and as a podcast. Thank you so much, Meghan.
Thanks.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, in his keynote speech at the Labour Party conference, shape-shifting Keir Starmer made the extraordinary claim that his party is now the home of the centre ground. Really?
Conference, the policy of my Labour government will always be to make Brexit work. Our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.
But within hours anyway, his claim was blown up by the Labour MP Rupert Huck, who made this vile racist comment about Britain's first black Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng.
Yes, black man. If you hear him on the Today programme, you wouldn't know he's black.
Tonight, she's apologised and been suspended from the party, but her defenders believe she was right to call out the Chancellor for his supposed lack of support for ethnic groups. So, is the left wrong to assume minorities in power have a responsibility to support other minorities? My Superstar panel, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and author and journalist Rebecca Reid tackle that next. We'll also see how tomorrow's newspapers cover this dramatic day of a Labour spin. He was one of the BBC's sports regular fixtures for over 30 years, but that stood for nothing in the face of the drumbeat for diversity. Football icon and top pundit Mark Lawrenson gives his first TV interview since accusing the corporation of axing him for being white, male and 65. He's live at 10:15. She's the Australian senator who went viral across the world for saying this about Meghan Markle.
Well, I think she's had a terrible influence over him, and she's just a horrible human.
Now, after a bombshell book details alleged bullying by the Duchess of Sussex, is Holly Hughes feeling vindicated? Well, she's going to give her first British TV interview in Uncancelled at 10:40. After a devastating new poll predicts doom for the Tories, especially in the Red Wall, is the party already beginning to regret knifing Boris Johnson in the back? I employ the Conservatives to break the cycle of self-sabotage encouraged by the MSM and political establishment and the media buzz at 10:30 plus. The new chief of the Met has promised cops will stop political gestures like taking the knee. But do you believe him? I'll give my verdict as I crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at 10:50. So do stay up with us tonight. But before all of that, the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. The Labour leader has promised he'll create a fairer, greener and more dynamic Labour Britain. Sir Keir Starmer said he'll create a publicly owned green energy company within a year of being elected. His keynote speech at the Labour Party conference came after days of financial turmoil in the markets and uncertainty in the wake of the Chancellor's mini-budget. Speaking in Liverpool earlier, Sir Keir also took aim at the government.
The government has lost control of the British economy. And for what? They've crashed the pound. And for what? My government will be different. We will run towards the challenges of tomorrow. We will get us out of this endless cycle of crisis. And we will do it with a fresh start, a new set of priorities, and a new way of governing.
Meanwhile, the Chancellor has told City investors he's confident in the government's long-term plan for growth after the pound hit an all-time low against the dollar. Kwasi Kwarteng reiterated the government's commitment to fiscal sustainability in a meeting with pension fund holders, insurers and asset managers. Next month, he'll set out a package of regulatory reforms for the UK's financial services sector to drive growth and, he says, incentivise investment. Now, the Labour MP Ruba Huq has offered the Chancellor her sincere and heartfelt apologies for the comments she made describing him as superficially black. Ms Huq has been suspended from the Labour Party following the recorded comments she made about Kwasi Kwarteng at a Labour conference fringe event yesterday. Labour has condemned the comments, calling them totally inappropriate. Royal Mail workers are staging a further 19 strikes across October and November. It's the latest in a dispute between the Communication Workers Union and Royal Mail over pay and conditions. The union had already set out plans for strikes from later this month to early October. The union says that fresh strikes will have a dramatic impact and will cover peak periods such as Black Friday, Cyber Monday and the build-up to Christmas. The first letters to be stamped with the King's cipher have rolled off the franking machine at Buckingham Palace. Messages of appreciation, cards, letters of condolence, all received by the royal family from the public following the Queen's death, will begin to be replied to and sent out later this week. His Majesty's monogram will also appear on government buildings, state documents and some postal boxes. New banknotes featuring the King's likeness are also expected to enter circulation by mid-2024. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now on Our Media Buzz. Just one front page so far tonight. The Daily Star leads with bullseye as NASA crashes a £300 million spacecraft into an asteroid to prove they could save humanity down on Earth. I mean, arguably, I actually think the Daily Star's made the right decision today. This is the most important story in the world. Don't you just get that fear sometimes where you think, oh my goodness, one day we're just going to get that news alert that says asteroid is heading our way. We need NASA to be able to destroy that thing. And it worked. So I'm very delighted about it, even though it cost £300 million and more, probably. It's worth it. My superstar panel back with me now. Top Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator and GB News star, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid. Now, breaking tonight, Labour MP Rupert Huck has been administratively suspended from the party pending an investigation after being accused of making racist comments about Britain's first black Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. In the latest example of Labour exposing themselves as the real nasty party, the MP for Ealing Central and Acton launched a shocking tirade at a conference fringe event on race yesterday entitled "What's Next for Labour's Agenda on Race?" Listen.
Yes, black man, but again, he's got more in common. If you look at it's like Joe Cox with more in common. If you look at the character, he went to Eton, I think he went to very expensive prep school, all the way through the top schools in the country. If you hear him on the Today programme, you wouldn't know he's black.
Utterly appalling. And it didn't end there, with The Sun political editor Harry Cole reporting that Huck took aim at other senior figures in the Tory party, saying, OK, superficially they've had 4 brown chancellors and that, but when you have a little brown guy, and also the leadership contest, I think I'd say alludes to that when there was Suella Braverman and Kemi Bain, all these people are in it superficially. Oh my goodness, it makes me so angry. It makes me so angry. Understandably, Huck's comments exposed by Guido Fawkes sparked serious concerns among the Tory party, with Chairman Jake Berry even writing to leader Sir Keir Starmer, who can't have been happy to have his conference speech completely derailed by yet more Labour unpleasantness. Berry hit the nail on the head, warning Huck that Kwarteng's Conservative ideology doesn't make him not black. And despite the furious backlash, Huck, who it has to be noted went to the fee-paying Notting Hill and Ealing High School, doubled down on her comments, branding the reaction a massive misunderstanding willfully. She added, obviously I know you can be brown and be a Tory, I'm not that stupid. And neither are we. Don't think we're naive enough to believe discrimination is only discrimination if it comes from woke folk. Mere hours later, in a screeching U-turn, Huck insincerely tweeted, I've today contacted Kwasi Kwarteng to offer my sincere and heartfelt apologies for the comments I made at yesterday's Labour conference fringe meeting. My comments were ill-judged and I wholeheartedly apologise to anyone affected. Clearly, she had a lot to say today, but our viewers will remember she wasn't quite so chatty when we tried to question her back in May about Starmer's obsession over Partygate amid the cost of lockdown crisis.
Can I just quickly ask you?
I guess she'll be running all the way to the job centre now, won't she? Goodness me. I mean, Amanda Patel, nothing makes me more angry than this. The left are despicable. You know, the left don't believe that I'm a gay man because I don't support far-left political ideology. It's the same thing for black people. It's completely despicable. If you do not sign up to their left-wing ideology, they don't give a damn that you're a minority.
No, they don't. But let's just start from the top. It's just horribly racist. I mean, it's the most appalling thing. You know, off the back of this, she should be very proud of herself because there were radio shows, not this one, saying, oh, yeah, he's just a coconut. One of the most offensive terms you can ever use about any person of any kind of racial background. You know, you're not really a black person, you're really a white person, which is supposed to be, you know, it's just... I found it breathtaking when I saw that, and I watched the video back again, and I thought, you cannot have said that, you cannot have believed it. But, you know, they both went to private schools, they both went to Cambridge. She went on to be a lecturer at a university in sociology, you know, understanding how people work. She's just a completely horrible, ugly hypocrite. And it goes to the whole core of what Labour are like. You know what it's like. It's like
I've got a rotten core.
It's you look at Angela Rayner, who happily and openly says all Tories are scum. So to these people to the left, the hardcore of Labour, which is the core and the heart of Labour, they're racist, they're sexist, they're just horrible, horrible people.
But Calvin, I feel for you with this because this isn't a one-off. I mean, you get this all the time. I see it all the time. People are prepared to be outwardly racist to you because you don't sign up to a left-wing ideology politically.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating. I'm glad that she's being reprimanded so rapidly, so hopefully people learn from this, because the left seem to think they have a free run on racism.
Yes.
They can be racist to you if you don't talk the way they think you should talk or act the way they think you should act, vote for the party they think you should vote for because of the colour of your skin. That is inherently racist. And what's worse about this kind of racism is they think if you have any kind of success, if you speak properly, all these kind of things, these are traits of whiteness.
Yes.
So what is she saying?
You're faking
Well,
it.
Black people
I
can't
thought
reach
that
success.
was the
Black people can't
most
talk properly.
racist thing in all of this.
Of course.
She was saying it when Kwasi Kwarteng's on the radio. Yeah. You don't know he's black. Why?
Well,
because
what
he's
does a
got a
black person
nice
sound
accent.
like?
Exactly. It's so despicable. But Rebecca Reed, this is something that is pervading the left now, isn't it? This idea that a minority is only a real minority if they stand up for this minority in every way in a left-wing political ideology.
Okay.
It's pervading the left.
We'll try and unpack this, so give me a second. There is a problem, generally, which is worse on the left but exists across society, that black or brown or BAME, which is a very lazy umbrella, is used synonymously with underprivileged. That is ridiculous. There are many, many, many BAME, very lazy term, middle-class people. I went to boarding school with a lot of black girls. They were not underprivileged. It's a misunderstanding. And when you look at, and Rod Liddell talks a lot about how actually if you want to try and help people, it should be done by class, not by anything else, because that's the thing that actually makes it more difficult to succeed. And in this country,
working class white boys.
Absolutely. All of the lowest educational outcomes is boys from traveller communities, and actually girls from traveller communities as well, who are ethnically white. There are more BAME children in poverty than there should be, but there are also more white children in poverty than there should be. What I would say in defence of the left, my people, is that all of the left-wing people I have looked at today, and I went and looked at my most left-wing people I know of, are saying the exact same thing. What does a black person sound like? Why is being educated a non-black thing?
Well, David Lammy didn't want to talk about it. I mean, he cries racism at a drop of a hat, and he didn't want to talk about it today.
He didn't want to talk about it because he doesn't want to slag off his friend. But Dr. Shola on Twitter has made the exact same point that Calvin made, that it is laughable to suggest that a level of education is inconsistent with an ethnicity, and that's racism.
She did go on to say, but he is a racial gatekeeper, which is just as bad, because she's the most racist person on
Dr. Shola is so racist.
Generally, the left-wing policy is that if you are a woman, you have a responsibility when you get into a position of power to help other women. If you are gay, you should help other gay people. If you are black, you should help other black people. Whether you feel that's fair or not is a personal choice. But I would always feel that I should try and help other women.
They think that the only way you can help black people or help gay people is signing up to a left-wing ideology. I completely disagree. I think the best way to help gay people, black people, any minority is by signing up to a right-wing ideology.
Helping working-class white boys would be a left-wing ideology. Giving anybody more help, more handouts, more legs up is an inherently left-wing thing to do.
But she's not helping other people of ethnicity. She's not, she's actually...
We all have an ethnicity. She's not helping other people who are South Asian, no. She's not helping anybody.
It just seems completely crazy.
Is she? I mean, if you follow her argument, Amanda, is she superficially South Asian because she went to a fee-paying boarding school? Or does it only apply to black people? Are only black people superficially?
Is it only
on the right? That's the problem. If he spoke how he speaks, but he was on the left, she'd be fine with it. The superficial element is that he's betraying his race by not being left-wing.
Right-wing.
Which isn't...
like a rapper or something,
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of
cliché is that's the racism here, that he should have a specific accent.
Horrible cliche.
It is, and it's an incredibly unpleasant stereotype, and I don't defend what she said for a second.
That was her Gerald Ratner moment. She's never going to recover from it.
And also, I would say she's had two accusations of anti-Semitism against her as well.
And don't forget, she once said that being black is a death sentence. She's got lots of form in it. She's a horrible woman. Yeah.
But what I will tell you, though, this is actually what a lot of the Labour Party thing.
I know they
And this has been
fundamentally not true.
She said the quiet part out loud.
It is true, Rebecca. Just like Angela Rayner lifted the veil last year when she said that all Tories were scum. They are the nasty party, Rebecca.
They are not.
This is the proof of
there
that.
There are people who do not behave well in every single political party. This wasn't good.
This is the only party that's been found guilty of racism.
It wasn't good, it was horrendous.
It hasn't been found guilty of anything.
It has anti-Semitism. It absolutely
guilty of
has.
anti-Semitism.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Which is a form of racism.
It is a form of racism. It's a
I'm usually the one on TV saying I don't see institutional racism, but in the Labour Party we have seen it and there's evidence of it.
And it's proven. Now, the hate pervading the corridors of Labour Party's conference in Liverpool wasn't actually consigned to Rupa Huq's attack on Kwarteng alone, believe it or not. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn exemplified the hypocrisy of the Be Kind left after he was snapped at a political festival running alongside the conference playing an arcade game where the aim, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is to kill Margaret Thatcher. He was also joined by Mercedes Villalba, a Labour member of the Scottish Parliament, who was pictured smiling from ear to ear over the game called Thatcher's Tech Base, which glorifies the murder of Britain's first female PM and challenges players to send her back to hell. I don't care what the polls say. If Labour keep showing us who they really are, it will be game over for them. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson and Amanda Patel do stand by, because coming up, after a devastating new poll predicts doom for the Tories, especially in the Red Wall, is the party already beginning to regret knifing Boris Johnson? My panel will return with Media Buzz at 10:30, plus we'll have more newspaper front pages too. But first, was he axed by the BBC for the apparent sin of being white, male and 65? I mean, that should be a good thing, right? Unless you're at the BBC. Well, now, football icon and top pundit Mark Lawrenson gives his first TV interview since his headline-grabbing comments on this. He's live with me straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online. We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Also, where's Tom?
Football legend Mark bombshell claims about being dropped from the BBC because he was, quote, old and white, marked a bitter end to his glittering 30-year career with the broadcaster. He was, of course, not alone, following in the footsteps of other legends such as Sue Barker, Steve Wright and Liz Kershaw, just to name a few, who have in recent years been ousted from the increasingly woke corporation for allegedly being born in the wrong year and having the wrong skin colour. Fans of Match of the Day and Football Focus will miss Laura from inside the box, not least because he was as brilliant a broadcaster as he was on the pitch during his all-conquering playing days. His star-studded footy career saw him play more than 150 times for Brighton and Hove Albion before becoming a Liverpool legend of the 1980s, winning a haul of league titles and even a European Cup. Fondly remembered as one of Liverpool's greatest ever players, he hung up his boots to tackle the world of television and covered an astonishing 6 World Cups during his broadcasting career. And I'm delighted to say Laura joins me now for his first television interview in the wake of his BBC exit. So, Mark, look, it seems to me the Beeb have made a big mistake parting company with you. We're very pleased to have you here tonight, of course. But what is quite shocking to me, Mark, and I've covered a lot of this over the past few years, speaking to people like Liz Kershaw, if you are old and white at the BBC these days, they seem to not really want you.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think just the people you just mentioned there, you know, in the clip, certainly Sue Barker, etc. I just don't get it. I think the premise should be that, you know, whatever age you are, creed, colour, whatever, if you can do what you're asked to do and are very, very good at the job, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about other people, then, you know, you should still be in the job. And what's the reason for you actually losing the job as well, which is just very, very strange. I mean, Dan Walker, who I'm sure you know, Dan, he used to present Football Focus, and he found out from basically rumours that he'd lost his job at the end of the season. So it's just a strange way that the BBC operate, I'm afraid. And they seem to be very, very frightened at giving you bad news. Now, if you think about it, as an ex-footballer, you play badly, you get shouted at, you get dropped, you get transferred. So you're used to bad news. But when somebody rings you up and says, oh, I'd like you to come in for a cup of coffee, and you're 50 miles away, and obviously you know what's coming, it's just a very, very strange thing, a very strange world to be in, certainly.
Well, indeed, because I was reading Sue Barker's book where she revealed what happened with her, and it actually seemed very similar to what happened with you. It's almost like there was no rhyme or reason behind it. They didn't really want to admit to you that it's nothing to do with your performance, Mark. It's all to do with your demographics.
Yeah, most definitely. So why? I mean, obviously, you know, public service broadcaster, massive corporation. You know, you see what they did with the Queen's funeral, etc. They're absolutely brilliant, but it's the little things that they just can't deal with. And just say a year ago they said to me, right, here's your new contract. It's only for a year, but after that year, that's it. Thanks very much. You would have gone, great. Okay, so we all know where we are. It's just this thing is they just do not want to be the harbinger of bad news. And it's crazy. We're just human beings. Just say, look, you know, you've had a great run, 30 years, whatever. Even if they think you're Marmite, even if they want to lie to you and go, you had a great run, but sorry, it's all over. So it is a very, very strange thing, I must admit. But I'm not, listen, I'm 65 and I'm white, but I'm not bitter.
Good. And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be bitter because you have had a great run. But Mark, I have a huge problem with it because I think if we're going to live in a world where you're not discriminated against, your colour and your age shouldn't matter, no matter whether you're young or whether you're old or whether you're white or whether you're black or whether you're Asian. So I don't buy into this argument, which has been propagated by lots of people at the BBC, that it's okay to do what they're doing because they're on a diversity drive. I don't feel that it's right to sack someone just because they're white and old. And by the way, I have to point this out because Amanda Platel, our superstar panellist, just got very angry with me for saying that 65 is old. They were your words, Mark, which I'm using. I don't think 65 is old. And it's not these days, is it? And it's certainly not acceptable if you are working in an office, so why should it be acceptable at the BBC to be sacked because you're old and white?
I don't know. You tell me. I have no idea because the premise, as I said to you before, whatever you are, is can you do the job? And, you know, you go to something like, and my kids are like, one of them's still in the teens, one of them's in the early 20s. And I remember not too many years ago, you go and pick them up from school, and they'd have like a PE and stuff, but it was non-competitive. And you think, what is the point of that? Because so all this thing non-competitive, then you go for a job and you're up against 25, 30 other people, but you've been told all the time it's non-competitive. It's absolutely bonkers. It really seriously is about as bonkers as your show, by the way, because this is the first time I've seen it. Crikey, what you all on? You think four of you.
Mark, you've got to tune in more often now. We want to have you on more now that you're not on the BBC.
I'm here.
Good, we'll get you down. Mark, tell me about the whole woke culture, because it feels like it's infiltrating lots of areas of the BBC. Did you notice that?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that the problem is that, you know, for people that put the programs together, the editors and the producers, they're just very, very aware that they just want the program to be clean. It's not a case of, you know, that was a really, really good program. It's like nobody said anything to upset anybody, which in itself is mad. And, you know, I when I did the interview with Paul Rowan for the Times at the weekend, it was just, if you remember when, it was many, many years ago when Princess Diana died, and I was doing a radio commentary for BBC, and I think it was probably either the end of that week or the week after, and I think it was at Bradford, and the editor came on and he said, look, if there's a free kick tonight, obviously just outside the penalty area, don't mention the wall, because obviously you put a wall up if you're a defensive team, so somebody can't score directly past. And I went, really? And I said to the commentator that was well, I said, is that for real? He went, oh yeah, that's just, you cannot mention the wall because of what happens here. I mean, what sort of a world do we live in?
And did you see a lot more of that creep in recent years?
On a regular basis, yeah. And you know, as I said, I mean, if you produce any of the programs, the biggest thing that when you come off air is, thank goodness nobody said anything that they're all going to complain about.
I know, and that's a terrible way to broadcast, isn't it? Because what it does is it means that you are walking on eggshells.
Well, it basically stops you doing what you wanted to do. You know, you're on the program in the first case because you might say something, and okay, people can take umbrage at it. It's the way that it is. But it's not, you then sat there thinking, excuse me, what should I actually say? And you're thinking in your head while you're watching the VT, well, my first thought, no, forget about that. You might have to just, in the end, you just become like almost faceless, and you just say whatever you think, which is within the lines of, I'm not going to get in trouble. And I must admit, about 3 or 4 months ago, I nearly went to see one of the bosses and say, look, you know what? This just isn't for me now. But obviously I hung on. But maybe they knew already anyway, so they'd already decided. So good night.
Well, look, Mark, it's been such a pleasure to speak to you. You know, we're not very woke here on GB News. We certainly don't do censorship. So you've got to come back. I think this is your sort of place. Mark Lawrenson, the football and broadcasting legend.
The great thing is, Dan, that it's all I can see is red. So from a Liverpool point of view, happy days.
Mark Lawrenson, so good to talk. Thank you so much, Mark. Now, coming up after a bombshell book details alleged bullying by the Duchess of Sussex, the Australian senator who went viral for slamming the Duchess, Holly Hughes, is feeling vindicated and all fired up. She lets rip and uncancelled at 10:40. But first, as devastating new polls predict doom for the Tories and Labour's reclaiming of the Red Wall, is the party already beginning to regret knifing Boris Johnson? My superstar panel return for the Media Buzz. We'll have more front pages next too.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales,
And Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio, and online. We're proud to be the People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. Lots of newspaper front pages have just been delivered, actually, so let's get straight to them. The Guardian has predictably praised Sir Keir Starmer for his plan for a return to power, with the headline, a Labour movement. After today's Labour conference, they also warn of a significant rise in rates for mortgage payments. Just looking, any mention of the racism from Rupert Huck? No sign. The Metro carries Keir Starmer's calls for voters not to forgive the Tories for, he claims, crashing the economy. Meanwhile, a beaming youngster is pictured meeting the new Princess of Wales on her trip with Prince William to the devolved nation today. The Independent splashes on reports that Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng is facing demands from the Tory party to sort the, quote, disaster of his mini-budget over fears millions of homeowners will face a steep mortgage rate hike. Reverse tax cuts, the IMF tells Liz Truss, in a rare intervention, according to the Daily Telegraph. They also pull up Starmer on the eco-promises in his Labour Party conference, blending it a red with a splash of green. The Daily Express splashes warnings of a surging twindemic of flu and COVID and urges people to go and get their jabs. Oh my goodness. Sorry, did you deliver me a newspaper from 2020? Move on. And The Sun leads on interest rate hikes for homeowners, which look set to reach 6% next year plus. Oh, this is exciting. They claim to have the full lineup for next year's all-star series of I'm a Celebrity. Boxer Amir Khan, Royal Butler Paul Burrell. Oh, yeah, you've got to have Paul Burrell. Countdown star Carol Vorderman. And showbiz fainted Gillian McKeith. Yes, Gillian McKeith back in the jungle. Oh, I like that. And there's Mylene. And she still looks as good, by the way. And the Daily Mail. This is a huge exclusive, actually. Leads with one of Stephen Lawrence's killers facing a criminal probe after sending selfies of himself in his prison cells. This is 46-year-old David Norris, who used a smartphone to send messages and photos to speak with friends, bragging that he will be out in 2 years. My superstar panel return now, top Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid. Now, there's possibly only one Tory who might have enjoyed yesterday's bombshell YouGov poll, which staggeringly put the Conservatives a record 17 points behind Labour, their largest deficit in 2 decades. Boris Johnson, the PM, who secured a thumping 80-seat majority, smashed Labour's red wall and then got Brexit done, could be forgiven for pulling a wry smile. And who can blame him, really, after being unceremoniously ousted by backstabbing MPs following a relentless campaign by the MSM, despite his predominantly major successes. While I backed Liz Truss to launch a tax revolution once Boris was ousted, it was obvious the newly empowered media and Liberal establishment would immediately take aim at their new target, and that's just what happened. We're being told that Tory members should have elected Fishy Rishi Sunak and that hard-left Keir Starmer is destined to be the next PM. Oh, and there's already an obsession with Tory no hopers sending letters of confidence into the 1922 committee, even though they can't hold another vote for 12 months. What the poll actually proves is that I and many others were right all along. Getting rid of Boris would likely be electoral suicide for the Conservative Party. Labour are flying high at the moment, buoyed by a disrupted start to Truss's tenure and an overreaction by city boys and market traders to the Chancellor's mini-budget. But remember, this time last year, Boris had such a dominating lead in the polls that he was being tipped to lead for a decade. Now he's sitting on the back benches plotting how to bolster his bank account. A lot can change in 12 months. But Amanda Patel, unfortunately, I always believed that this was going to happen because it's not just about the fact that Liz Truss is in a weak position for various reasons. No, Amanda, absolutely not. I thought her mini-budget was brilliant. But the problem is that the political establishment and the MSM are now so empowered, they want her out now, and they're not going to stop at anything until she's out.
They just have to damn well stop. Sometimes it is a very depressing thing to be a Conservative. And first of all, we witnessed this act of most terrible self-harm, getting rid of Boris Johnson. I mean, he did some stupid things. He should have been looked after better. You know, the bits of him that were like a child. You have a child who's self-harming you, you watch over them. You take away the razor blade.
Yes.
You know, instead...
He needed better people around him.
He needed better people around him, and to get rid of him was just... It's just an act of self-harm. And to see those polls, I've got to, Dan, it is so depressing being a Conservative these days. I don't believe them.
Did it make you want to cry?
Oh, Jesus. They cry. If I was a crying type, I'd cry now. Put the fan back
17 points.
17 points. It's like so depressing to think there are that many people in this country who are so stupid that they think that Keir Starmer would be a successful Prime Minister.
Because he'll bankrupt this country.
But it would be hard to be doing a worse job than Liz Truss is right now.
No, come on, you've got to give her time, and let's not forget that...
I don't have to give her time.
Well, you don't have to.
They've had 12 years of screwing things up.
She's only had 12
Why did
weeks.
you laugh when I said that I adored the mini-budget, Rebecca? Why do you have such a problem
Because
with
of all those pictures of all the lines going downwards as a result.
Calvin Robinson?
Oh, it's so depressing. Firstly, that wasn't a Conservative budget. Everyone's like, oh, the Conservatives are Conservative again. No, the Conservatives are still neoliberals. They cut taxes for the rich. Fantastic for them. What about the working class and the middle class? What about social issues? That's what Conservatives care about, social traditions. And what we're seeing is Liz Truss wants to increase immigration to up the GDP. Again, GDP-focused, economic-obsessed. That's what these neoliberals are. They want cheap labour. Instead of training up our own people, they want to import cheap labour to undermine our own people, which is a great shame. This is why they haven't done anything to cut immigration. This is why they're not tackling the Channel Tunnel. This is why the Rwanda plan and the Albanian plan are failing, because they don't want to cut immigration. This is a pro-immigration.
Calvin, she has been in post for 20 days.
And she's done
we have to remember that 12 of those days was the official warning period.
That's not true. It's
Calvin is absolutely right, which is not something I ever say, is that this was not... This didn't tick boxes for anybody. I'm not happy about it. Proper Conservatives aren't happy about it. It failed everybody.
Well, I did not say I was unhappy about it. I think that a low-tax economy and driving...
My taxes haven't gone down.
Yeah.
Well, there is going to be a 1p income
I
tax
think,
cut
maybe
for everyone.
It's going to affect all of us.
Next year.
It just doesn't happen in our bank balance. But I just want to make the
We've
point
been saying this for 12 years. I'm sorry.
So every single...
Just let Amanda make the point and then I'll let you respond, Rebecca.
It's not going to happen overnight. She's taken a big gamble. I'm praying that it's going to work.
Rebecca.
And it's too early to tell.
It is...
And Margaret Thatcher was behind in the polls with a recession, huge unemployment, and she won by a landslide.
It is absolute madness to say that the only reason this isn't going well is because of the mainstream media. 3 of the best newspapers in this country are all conservative-leaning, right-leaning. There is no way that the only problem here is that the mean old BBC are being mean to Liz. Liz is doing a terrible job. The budget was a joke.
She's not doing a terrible job.
And
the budget was not a joke.
Is a joke. 17 points was laughable.
Yeah, that's laughable, but the budget was not a joke. It was considered, and she's taken a huge gamble.
Every single financial
and I
expert
just
said
pray
it was a bad budget.
They do not. You can't say it's not true.
They don't.
That's not.
They don't.
Trickle-down economics does not
There
work.
are economists, Julian Jesser, Patrick Minford, who absolutely buy into what she's doing. In fact, they think she needs to do more. They go against the Treasury orthodoxy. I guess the main point, I think, Calvin, where you're being a bit unfair, is that she has been in office for 20 days. 12 of those days were an official mourning period. She had to get the budget out of the way immediately because she needs to plump for economic growth. I think a lot of the social issues that you're talking about, that she spoke about in the campaign, Calvin, we can only hope are going to come in the weeks and months.
She's already said to fix economic growth, she's going to up immigration. We know that immigration is the number one
there's
issue
a big cabinet debate about that, though, isn't there?
And Calvin is right that if you don't invest in training young people to be able to do useful things like carpentry, etc., then you don't make anything for the future.
I just think the fact that the media, they were always going to do this, has written, and the political establishment, have written her off after 20 days says a lot. And I haven't written her off. I'm holding on to a lot of hope.
You're in an abusive relationship with that woman.
Oh, Rebecca, 20 days and she's a failure. 20 days and she's a failure.
No,
come on,
sorry.
come on. You've got to give her a chance, and I will give her a chance. And I will give her a chance. No, she didn't lie to me. She delivered her tax-cutting, bold budget to focus on growth, and I am going to give it a chance. And you should too. If you want what's best for Britain, you should give it a chance.
A year today, I will give you 50 quid a year today if she hasn't broken at least 2 major campaign pledges.
Well, she's already broken one. Channel 4, and I'm furious about it.
Yeah, I think that
see, one more and I get 50 quid.
That's what it's like being in a political party, especially the Conservatives. When it's really looking terrible, you have to keep the faith.
You do.
And
always keep
the faith. Or change what you're doing to make it all terrible.
No. Because let me tell you, if you think the economy's bad now, you just wait till Keir Starmer goes on his deranged march to zero carbon power by 2030, and we will be bankrupt.
Because Labour are so bad. The Tories need to offer something positive.
I agree with that, Calvin. I agree with that, Calvin.
It's like when you're putting
I agree with that.
It's going wrong, stop putting more on.
Now on to one of my favourite and seemingly limitless topics now, and I have to praise Calvin Robinson for this because he spotted it earlier today. It's the hypocrisy of eco-fanatics. Believe it or not, this viral interview with a 16-year-old climate activist on a radio station in my native New Zealand isn't a parody, but it is proof as to why no one should ever listen to the likes of jet-setting Izzy Cook. Listen.
Am I allowed to go to Fiji? Is that necessary?
In the current climate crisis, I don't think that that's necessary.
When was the last time you were on a plane?
I'm not sure. Maybe a few months ago, to be honest.
Where'd you go?
Fiji.
Izzy! Izzy! Don't you care about the climate, Izzy?
Of course I care about the climate.
Not enough. You went to... You went to Fiji. Izzy, come on, mate. Are you serious?
No, young Izzy does go on to explain that the trip to Fiji was with her parents. So of course she couldn't possibly say no.
Does it?
No, it doesn't. And by the way, as expected, how predictable, the presenter Heather Duplessis-Allen, who's brilliant actually, she's come under accusations for bullying during the interview. How ridiculous. We need to keep calling out these green hypocrites, no matter their age, until they buy themselves a one-way ticket to the world of common sense. That's what I say. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Amanda Patel, thank you so much. Do stand by there, because coming up, my panel are going to return to reveal their nominations for today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, she was condemned across the globe for blandly Meghan Markle, a horrible human. But that was before those bombshell bullying claims against the Duchess. Holly Hughes, the Australian senator, is uncancelled and ready to go in mere seconds. First, though, I'm going to be away for the rest of the week. My goodness, I forgot that. I'm going to miss you. I am back on Monday, though. In the meantime, you'll be in the company of Mark Dolan. So here's a sneak peek of what's coming up tomorrow night.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight with me, Mark Dolan. We'll find out more about the shocking and sinister idea of giving every member of the public a personal carbon allowance. The World Economic Forum's dystopian attempt to strip our freedoms in the name of net zero. Social commentator Leah Halpern joins us to explain more about this concerted attack on our way of life. Plus, we've got serial straight talkers Anne Widdecombe, Spiked Online's Brendan O'Neill, and columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle. tackling the topics that matter to you. And on my superstar panel, reacting to the big stories of the day, former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Ashley James. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, with me, Mark Dolan, Monday to Thursday at 9 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where the world's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, an Australian senator made headlines across the globe in the run-up to the Queen's state funeral by calling out Harry and Meghan's behaviour towards the royal family in the usual no-nonsense manner we expect from our friends down under. Watch.
I'm sick of both of them. I sort of long for the day where I hope Harry rolls over one day, takes one look and thinks, what have I done? And comes to his senses and packs up and moves back across the pond. I think he's made an awful error and I think she's... I think she's had a terrible influence over him and she's just a horrible human.
Now, Hughes was reacting to the reports that the couple were baffled by the decision they were uninvited to the state reception at Buckingham Palace, despite the fact they gave up being working royals 2 years ago. Predictably, she faced waves of backlash from that awful Sussex squad, but she has rightfully stood by her comments. I'm delighted to say she joins me now live from her Senate office in the capital city of Canberra, Australia. Good morning to you, Holly. So great to speak to you. Do you know what? I loved your comments, actually, because I think they're how the vast majority of the world are feeling. And you must have been delighted, Holly, just days after you were criticised for making them, all of these revelations talking about how Meghan has been described by her staff as a narcissistic sociopath who bullied all of her courtiers and even resulted in them crying in front of Prince William. Do you feel vindicated now, Holly?
Well, I think it's extraordinary that so much of the mourning period and the Queen's funeral and all the events around that ultimately became about what Meghan and Harry were doing and where they were and what they were wearing, and not focused on what it should have been, which was about paying tribute and memorialising the Queen. And that was where sort of the basis of my comments came from, a sort of point of frustration where it's not about them and it shouldn't have been about them, yet it continued to be so, and they continue to make it about them. And I think when we've seen now Harry's scrambling to make edits to his book, that Meghan's been trying to make changes to her podcast. That's coming back on air next week. We'll see where it is. But I think one of the things that I have managed to achieve is in Australia we have a republic movement. If you see who leads it, you understand why it's never gone particularly far or done particularly well. But the backlash I received from some of these people, I seem to have turned them into monarchists overnight in the way their support for Meghan and the family. It's extraordinary. Perhaps if I say something about Andrew, I can boost his PR as well.
Indeed. I mean, it is fascinating, isn't it, Holly? Because you're right. They came over to the UK when the Queen was alive and said they didn't want to see any members of the royal family at all, not even the Queen. They refused her invitation to go and see her in Balmoral, which would have been their last chance. Now, I know you got criticised for using the word revolting. I would say that was a revolting thing to do, wasn't it? I mean, this was Harry's last opportunity to be with his grandmother, and he threw it back in her face.
Look, my understanding is, and I could be wrong, that they were actually staying at Frogmore Cottage when they were in the UK. Yeah. That they didn't bring the children with them, who a lot was made of, that they named their daughter after the Queen with regards to her nickname with Lilibet, and yet they didn't bring them over to see her, even in private, the Queen met her once or twice before her passing. And at 96, I know a lot of us were so moved when the Queen passed because regardless of her age, and we could see her failing health, that I guess we never thought that we were going to lose her. But, you would have thought that they might have brought the children over to see her at that age. And yet there was absolutely no efforts made on their behalf. Yet when the funeral efforts became all about Meghan and Harry, I just thought it was just revolting of them. And there's that word again, but it was behaviour that was so focused on them and not what it should have been about.
No, indeed. And one thing I find so interesting, Holly, and I don't know if you've faced this over the past week, but let me know, I get it a lot, is if you ever criticise anything Harry and Meghan do, instantly their fans, and they tend to be folk on the hard left, instantly cry racism. Now, I find that very bizarre because I was very supportive of Meghan when she joined the royal family. I absolutely celebrated her being here as a country, as a Commonwealth. We were completely behind this wedding. It was only once we saw the way that she behaved, the way she treated her staff, the way she treated the Queen, the way she treated her own family, her own father, Holly, who she refused to go in a 45-minute drive to see when he was close to death in hospital. That's when we commented, and I don't think race has anything to do with it.
Look, nothing I said had anything to do with race. The way that I feel about her and think about her has nothing to do with race. The fact that she had to apologise to a court for misleading them when she said she had nothing to do with the unauthorised biography, but apparently did, when she made claims around Nelson Mandela kind of cheering in the streets around South Africa, which has been disputed about her marriage. You know, all of these sorts of things have built into a narrative of that I'm sorry, I just don't really like the woman, and I don't know the woman, but I don't like her. There's plenty. The great irony that I found was people were criticising me, saying, how can you say this about her? You don't know her. You're a vile, vile human. And I'm like, well, you don't know me. Have you heard of the definition of irony here, people? So, I mean, it is just extraordinary. But I think, and I'm sure it's the same in the UK, conservative women, it wouldn't matter what we did or what we said, we would have the far left attack us regardless. And of course, as I said, the Republicans, those that would come out and were, in some instances, gleeful with regards to the Queen's passing, as soon as I said that about Meghan, were completely on board with the royal family, because how could I be so disrespectful?
Yeah, there's an irony in that, isn't there?
You know, you almost got whiplash with their turnaround and what they were going on with it.
Well, look, Holly, I love how straight-talking you are. I love that you've stood by the comments, and I have to say it may not have pleased the Twitterati, but most people here in the UK were cheering you on.
And I really did enjoy the emails I got from the UK. It was actually lovely. There was a lot of them saying, thank you for saying exactly what we're thinking.
Indeed, indeed. Well, look, do come back. Dan. That was New South Wales Senator for the Liberal Party in Australia, Holly Hughes. But it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain in Union Jackass. My superstar panel return. Amanda Patel, who's your nomination for Greatest Britain tonight?
I kind of want to change it to Holly Hughes because she's so fantastic. And I totally agree with you, Holly, but I can't do that because Dan gets really cross. Mine is the new chief of the Metropolitan Police, and his name is Mark Rowley. And I love him because one of his first acts was to say no Met cop is ever going to take the knee on his force, and none of them will ever be able to wear rainbow nail polish or rainbow headbands or anything else supporting any kind of parade. They have to remain completely impartial.
Yeah, as they should.
Good luck.
Calvin Robinson, your Greatest Britain nominee.
Mine is Keir Starmer for...
What?
Yes, a rapid response to the racist in his party, but also for proposing to ditch business rates. Now, that's a response for small to medium enterprise that I can get behind.
And Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
Having to agree with Calvin twice in one night.
What's happening? What's happening?
I'm becoming right wing. Please don't fire me. Mine is an honorary one. It is the women of Iran who are cutting off their hair and burning their hijabs in protest against the horrific situation there. That is incredible, astounding bravery and amazing feminism.
OK, great nominees. Well, apart from Calvin. But I'm going to go for Amanda Patel because I think, look, Mark Rowley has a huge job to turn around the police in this country.
But a good start.
And it was a good start, and I was delighted, actually, to hear those words.
But it's just rhetoric again, isn't it?
I know, but let's start with the rhetoric and let's see if it gets into action, but you need the rhetoric to begin.
No, he doesn't. He's a non-believer. I'm a believer when it comes... Just because don't be fooled by this.
OK, Union Jackass time, Amanda Patel.
OK, it's the disgusting Jeremy Corbyn. What kind of a man thinks it's funny to play a video game which his whole objective is to kill a woman? Even if that woman is Margaret Thatcher and he hates her, he's a horrible misogynist. He's the most horrible person in the whole world. And you know, it's a bit pointless because actually she's already dead.
Indeed, but it was sick. Calvin Robinson, your Union jackass.
Rupert Huck for being an old-fashioned racist.
Yeah.
And Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
I'm really sorry, but that budget was just unforgivable.
So who's your nominee?
Oh, sorry, I'm saying Kwasi, because it was literally the worst budget ever. And I do feel bad. I kind of want to give him a hug, because I'm sure he worked really hard on it, but it was rubbish.
I don't think he'd want your hug.
I think he would, because I know what it's like when you do a piece of work and you work really hard on it and everyone thinks it's not very good. I've been there many times. It's just mine didn't tank the whole economy. Oh, ouch.
Well, I thought the budget was great, and I am keeping the faith. So, of course, the Union jackass tonight is Rupert Huck, Rupert the racist. Absolutely
And the oddest
despicable.
run anyone's ever seen.
Oh, that run. What is
I know. I know. Well, I'm sure she's going to have a lot of people chasing her over the next few days. She's going to be able to do running fast. Amanda Patel, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, my fabulous superstar panel. I'm back on Monday night. Mark Dolan's here for the next couple of nights, though. Have an amazing week. Good night.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGibbon with the latest weather from the Met Office. Rain or showers continuing in many places this evening. Clear spells, though, in between the showers. And as a result, a chilly night to come for some. Our wind direction at the moment is northwesterly, those winds coming around an area of low pressure sitting in the North Sea. And around that low, we've also got a number of weather fronts. One feature crossing north to south across the country, bringing showers, and another skirting parts of Cornwall and West Devon to bring some more prolonged rain. That rain eventually petering out through the early hours, although still some showers following, and showers will continue in many western and eastern fringes overnight with clear spells in between. And under those clear skies, temperatures dipping away. We're looking at the mid to low single figures in some sheltered spots. But we start off Wednesday with sunny spells, although a chill in the air. There will be plenty of bright weather out there. And actually, for many, we'll avoid the showers, especially through this central swathe. But western and eastern parts will still see further showers and a brisk breeze, and that will make it feel on the cool side, 14 to 16 Celsius typically. Spells of rain pushing in from the North Sea then into northeast England, and that toppling into the rest of northern England, the Midlands, and as it pushes south through the early hours of Thursday, it will turn to showers before it reaches South Wales and southern England. Further showers come in across northern parts of the UK overnight as well. In between the showers, there will also be some clear spells, but it won't be quite as cool, I think, overnight because of the additional cloud cover, and so temperatures more like the high single figures than the low single figures. We start off Thursday with plenty of bright weather. There'll still be some showers, especially in the north and the east, those showers on the heavy side around northern England as well as eastern Scotland. Friday sees more prolonged rain arrive as well as a strengthening wind. Bright spells and showers on Saturday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you.